Okay. So remember that we talked about this importance of taking care of ourselves, right? We just had an opportunity to do that during these 10 minutes. Taking breaks is important. If you have been sitting in front of your computer since 8 o'clock this morning, which many of us are, during that break, and if you haven't, you can go ahead and do it now, right? We're gonna be able to engage in an experience soon. So we want to get up, we want to stretch our hands up, we want to go down, crack our back a little bit. We want to get out the wiggles, maybe drink some coffee. So if you have not gotten up and in those 10 minutes you just stayed sitting down, please do it now. Because in order for our brains to be working really well, we have to release all the stress in our bodies. So go ahead and stretch.
Lila, sí.
I can't see you guys.
Esa,
Go ahead and make sure that you are stretching. All right. So now we're ready to put our thinking caps back on. It's time to start again. And so we've been talking a little bit about challenging behavior throughout our presentation. And hopefully by now I've started to convince you that play-based learning is a way to reduce and prevent challenging behavior. Ooh, Tamara, café con leche, que rico. Awesome. Oh, I think I'm supposed to talk English the whole time. But that is very good. Drinking water, great. So, challenging behavior. Every single time that we're in the classroom and we have a kiddo like do something like this, how does it make us feel? Just laying down on the floor, throwing things, crying. How do you feel in that moment? And remember, this is a safe space. You guys can express how you feel. Frustrated. Yes, very frustrated. You don't like it. Upset. You're there to teach the child, and this child is doing this. You're worried. What's going on with this kiddo? Is he hungry? Is something going on at home? Absolutely. You are feeling those feelings. Impotence, right? Not being able to control the situation in that moment. You feel uncertain. You're not sure what to do. You're sad because this is happening, and and you're not only sad for that kiddo that's having a hard time, but you can also be sad from the other kids that we're taking away learning time from them. You're concerned. So all of these things are normal feelings for you to feel. You can get frustrated. Challenging behaviors are hard for all of us. I'll share with you, even after I got my PhD, I have a nephew. I got my PhD in developmental psychology, and I've been working with children for over 20 years. I started off when I was in high school, like I told you guys, and then I went on to do that. And I have a nephew who has ADHD, and his behaviors are very, very challenging. He has a hard time controlling his emotions. He throws things often, he bites, and he hits things. And this is what I do for a living, and I still get frustrated. And so you guys are educators. You're with sometimes 20 kids that are exhibiting, and you have 2 or 3 exhibiting this behavior. It is normal that you get frustrated and upset. But we have to regulate our own emotions before we can help that kid. So if you feel any negative emotion, sadness, frustration, worry, concern, whatever you feel, anger, even anger, right? If this kid is kicking and spitting at you, it's okay that you feel anger. But as soon as we notice I'm having this negative feeling, we have to stop. We have to stop, and we have to take a break. And think about stop as an acronym. We're going to stop, take a break. We're going to observe ourselves and the child, and then we can proceed. Then we can behave in a helpful way. If we do not stop, it is going to be very challenging for us to support that behavior in a way that helps the child and that helps us continue with our day. So we have to know a little bit when we stop, what is it that we're thinking about? And why these challenging behaviors are happening. And I know that a lot of you, Ines, I'm glad that you're mentioning sometimes kids need to be able to cry. I love that you said that, because sometimes we don't notice that when we cry, it releases stress. And if you look at the chemistry of our brains, when we cry, it actually releases oxytocin. And so this idea that as a society, we tell children and also adults, oh no, don't cry. We don't want you to cry. That doesn't make sense. Crying is an acceptable way of coping. You know what's not an acceptable way of coping? Hitting other people, throwing things at other people, biting ourselves. Those are not good ways of coping, but crying is. So sometimes kids need to cry. And when we hug them, we let them cry a little bit in our arms, that helps them regulate their emotions. So don't shy away from crying. Crying is okay. There's nothing wrong with crying. It's a positive way of coping. And we are going to make sure that we can support our children when they're doing that. And you know, I really am glad that Ines brought this up, because I want to make this connection to adults. If your friend just had a really big argument with her boyfriend and she wasn't able to pay the electricity bill because her boyfriend lost his job, and she starts crying, think about what you would do as a friend when your friend is going through that. And they start crying, telling you, I wasn't able to pay the electricity bill this month. I got into a huge fight with my boyfriend. I don't know what I'm going to do. And she's crying. What suggestions do you give your friend? How do you act as a good friend in that moment? What do you do? And I'll give you guys a moment to share with me on the chat. What do you do as an adult when your friends can't pay their electricity bill and just got into a huge fight with their boyfriend? Listen. Thank you, Carelis. You listen. You try to be empathetic. You try to connect with her. You hug her. You let her know that you're there for her to be able to vent. You offer some help. You let her cry if she needs to, and then maybe support her in thinking about some solutions. Maybe you give her a night out and you say, you know what, you're going through a hard time. Let's go have some dinner, me and you, and just get away for a little bit. So I want to ask you guys, if to be a good friend to someone that's an adult, we stop and we listen and we comfort, don't you think our kids deserve that too? Why is that not our first approach when children cry? Why is it that we tend to say, no, don't cry, don't cry. No, ya, nothing happened to you. Nada te pasó. You're okay. Imagine if we did that to our friends and we said, who cares that you don't pay the electricity bill? Nothing's gonna happen. You're fine. Keep going. We would be a bad friend. So that means that we have to think about, if we react that way with an adult that has more thinking skills, we react that way to an adult that can solve their problem. Maybe you can lend them some money, or maybe they can get another job. Imagine our kiddos that their brain isn't developed enough to be able to have those skills, to be able to think through that. They, more than the adult, need us to stop, to listen, to comfort them. And so when they are having this challenging behavior, that is our role. And in order for us to remember, we're feeling frustrated, right? With our friend, we're not frustrated. We're like, oh yeah, we're in this great mood. But with kids, we're frustrated. So we're going to stop. We're going to be empathetic to ourselves. We're going to take a deep breath and we're going to say, I'm sad. I'm frustrated. I'm concerned. Okay. I'm going to acknowledge that and I'm going to be able to move forward, to proceed. We need the information to understand where this behavior is coming from. And I'm going to take you guys back. I know all of you have, or most of you have a CDA, or you're in the process of thinking about, or a CDA. I'm going to take you back to Vygotsky. Vygotsky, in that CDA class, you learned about him. And he talks about the zone of proximal development. And this zone of proximal development is something that we say is really important to scaffold children. And you know, people talk to teachers about scaffolding children like it's something easy. It's not. It's hard, and it takes a lot of skill and practice to be able to do that. When we're talking about the zone of proximal development, we need to consider two things. One is that we need to consider, and you can see that here in the x-axis, the level of competence of a child. You need to think about what are the skills that the child has. What is it that they are able to do? To do that, you got to know your kids. You got to observe them. You got to know what they're able to do. What are the skills that they have? And then you also need to think about the task that you're providing for them. And you need to think about what is the level of challenge for this task? How hard is this task? What skills do children need to be successful in this task? And to be in the zone of proximal development, you have to align those things. You have to align the skill of the child, and you need to align the challenge of the task. The task needs to be hard enough for them to be able to do it with a little bit of support. Vygotsky called it guided participation. Exactly, Soraya. I see that you mentioned this is where we apply scaffolding, because we're aligning the level of competence with the level of challenge. And Maria mentioned, I give support to be able to provide that guided participation that children need in the zone of proximal development. This zone of proximal development is where children are actually learning, because they're being able to do something a little bit harder than what they were doing before. This is the time that children are not exhibiting challenging behavior. If we make a mistake and we have a task that is too easy for that child, then kids will get bored. And when kids get bored, they display challenging behavior. And they're not learning, which is our goal. Another situation that we can have is that we give a task that is too hard for that child. Now children become anxious, they become frustrated. And when they do that, we also have children that display challenging behaviors. So when we have challenging behaviors happening in our classroom, we have to think about, what is this kid communicating to me? Are they frustrated because the task is too hard? Are they bored because the task is too easy for them? And then we also have to think outside the box. Are they hungry? Did they just realize that they're thirsty and they don't know how to communicate it? Are they having a lot of stressors at home? You know, think about being a little kid and being in your or home environment where you're supposed to feel safe, and all of a sudden your parents are fighting and throwing things to each other, and they're starting to get violent. A lot of our kids go through that. For those of you who work in Head Start and early Head Start, and even in private childcare, our families that are experiencing a lot of stressors have a lot of things going on. Imagine being a little kid and all of a sudden you peed yourself and your mom hit you because of that. And now you get to the classroom and you're upset. And so any task is going to be too hard because you're not in the mental space to be able to do it. So when these challenging behaviors are happening, they could be happening by a whole host of reasons. And as an educator, I want you to think of yourself as a detective. You're trying to figure out why this is happening. Vygotsky's theory helps give us some possible explanations. I see here we're talking about changing a diaper. Yeah, the kid might be pooped on. Being pooped on isn't fun. You feel uncomfortable. Teacher, you're asking me to do the letter H in this sand? I don't want to do it. I'm pooped, I'm uncomfortable, I'm thirsty, I'm hungry. Or you know what? I don't even know what the letter H is. What are you even talking about? That is why I am displaying challenging behaviors. I'm trying to communicate. I see a lot of you were sharing eye contact. Eye contact soothes young children. When they make eye contact with someone that they love and care about, that helps center them. I am 36 years old. 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago now, I fell at Tropical Park and I hurt my ankle really, really, really bad. I know that what I should need is a doctor. But you know what I needed? I needed my mom. I needed to make eye contact with her to be able to soothe the pain I was feeling. And as I was crying and in pain, exhibiting challenging behavior, right? Because we would consider someone crying exhibiting challenging behavior. I was going through pain and I needed eye contact from my mom and for her to touch my arm and say, that sucked. We're going to put a little lotion for you. We're going to put some Vicks Vapor Rub, some warmth until we get you to a hospital. I'm 36 years old and I needed that. Imagine what these kiddos need, where they're not emotionally regulated, where their frontal lobe isn't developed yet. So remember that when children are exhibiting these behaviors, they are communicating with us. And we got to think outside the box of what are they trying to communicate. The most common reason why children exhibit challenging behavior in the classroom is because they are bored or frustrated with what's going on. And that's when these play-based experiences are helpful to prevent it. But I know you're sitting there saying, I'm doing this really cool water experience. Children are using their feet to explore water. And now they have started splashing water at each other. And there's a kid who's crying hysterically because he's upset. We are going to stop in the moment. We're going to take a breath. It's so important. And I want you guys to take a breath from your diaphragm. I learned that I was breathing incorrectly from a physical therapist, and I had no idea because I was breathing like this. You see how my upper body is the one moving first? That upper body is actually stimulating my sympathetic nervous system, and it is getting me to think you need to either fight or flight. So I was actually thinking, making things worse when I was trying to calm down. What I needed to do was breathe from my diaphragm. So I'm gonna engage you guys in that for a second. You touch your diaphragm right here. It's right under your chest area. And when you breathe, you should feel that go up first before your chest goes up. So when I touch my diaphragm, I felt it inflate first and then go down. That's the kind of deep breath you want to take when you're experiencing frustration, because you need to trigger the right amount of the right nervous system to get you to calm down. I see some of you are using Tucker Turtle. That is a great strategy to make sure that you are not only breathing yourself, engaging the child in that breathing so the right nervous system can be activated. And so we talked about what you do in the moment, right? You use bunny breathing, you use Tucker the Turtle, you breathe yourself, you let the child do it, you validate the emotion and you say, I can tell you're frustrated. That splashed water, you threw it everywhere and you're wet and you're upset about it. Yeah, I understand. Conscious discipline, wonderful curriculum to be able to support some of these things that we're talking about. But remember that what we want to do is, yes, of course, we need to deal with challenging behaviors when they happen. And even in the best classroom, we have challenging behaviors because we work with young kids. And young kids, they have to have feelings, and feelings are hard. They're parts of their brain is making those connections. There's things going on at home that you can't control. But if we can do things to prevent challenging behavior, we should. And the best thing you could do to prevent challenging behavior is have play-based learning. Play-based learning allows children to connect with you. You are more likely in play-based learning to make that eye contact. You're more likely to smile, to laugh, to genuinely listen to each other as you're asking those questions that we talked about. You're giving them an opportunity to engage in ways that are interesting and fun, and you're preventing them from getting bored and frustrated. That doesn't mean that as to prevent challenging behavior, maybe you have little snacks in the classroom, you have them use their water bottles to attack some of the other ways that they might display some other reasons. But these play-based learning, there has been so much documentation that has happened in the research world, and so many teachers that have used this strategy to prevent challenging behavior, and it has been effective. For those of you who are already doing that, I invite you to share in the chat. How have you noticed that these play-based experiences, when you're doing these things, is reducing challenging behavior? What have you noticed? Maybe think of a particular child. Maybe think of the child that maybe a nonverbal child who's in the process of going through early steps to get diagnosed. When you've incorporated some of these play-based learning, what have you noticed that has happened? I'll give you guys a moment. We're seeing that the people are talking about how these play-based learning, it helps connect the eye contact and how that really soothes children. I see here that we're having intentional time to focus on emotions and feelings to help them understand what those things are. For those of you who use the pyramid model, and I know many, I've been to some of the sites you guys are working at, you have a feelings chart posted in your classroom where children are able to point. So if they don't have the verbal skill, they can at least communicate with you how they're feeling. We notice that children are giving their immediate attention to those play-based experiences, and that is reducing those challenging behaviors. We're focusing on their feelings. We see that play-based learning, since it's capitalizing on children's interests, that they are so engaged in it, that they're becoming more disciplined and more concentrated as they are really trying to figure out what's going on there, and that is reducing. And you know what? It's making your life easier as caregivers, right? You have so many things that you have to deal with already. So if you put in just a little bit of effort to provide some of these play-based experiences and you ask these questions, you're going to be able to have a better time in the classroom. You're going to be able to use it as a way of taking care of yourself. Yes, play-based experiences take a little bit of more time to plan than just giving a piece of paper and having them trace the letter H or holding up a flashcard. So maybe at the beginning, it is going to take a little bit more time and effort, but you get so much more benefit when you do a little bit more of these play-based experiences instead of these closed-ended experiences that end up leading to these challenging behaviors. I see here, Maria Angelica was sharing, giving them attention, asking them questions throughout these experiences has reduced those challenging behaviors. And I love that you shared this, Greta. Bring joy to that learning. When children are happy, challenging behaviors decrease. When you do things that they're interested in, that they think is fun, that they want to explore, you are saving yourself the uphill battle of fighting for their interest and attention. You are capitalizing on what they are already interested in. Sadia, so you're sharing that they need time to practice. Yeah, like everything else. I love the quote that says, you know, when children don't know their letters, we teach them. When children don't know their numbers, we teach them. When they don't know how to swim, we teach them. But when they don't know how to behave, we punish them. That doesn't make sense, right? When they don't know how to behave, we teach them. And we give them opportunities to be able to engage in interesting experiences that teach them a lot of skills, and that we teach them about their emotions, about being able to do all of these things so they can better behave. I love here on the chat that children are always asking to play. Yeah, that's what they love to do. But what children don't even notice is that they're learning, and you incorporate it. And we went through so many examples today where you can see how children are learning numbers, letters, how to behave, emotions, critical thinking, problem solving. They're more motivated. So their approaches to learning are better when they are playing. So we're going to go and we're going to do these play-based experiences. And not only is it going to help kids in more ways, they're going to be able to stay more calm and more engaged. you as an educator are going to have an easier time. Thank you, Paula, for sharing that resource of the pyramid model. That is a wonderful resource. She shared it on the chat as the link. Please go into those websites. They provide so much. If you're working with children from 0 to 3, highly recommend going to the 0 to 3 website. They post, I think, a monthly blog. A lot of that talks about some of the challenging behaviors that are going on in that classroom. And Edna, I love you made this connection. They learn very quickly. When you're doing play, they're so interested and engaged instead of frustrated and bored that their learning is actually quicker. They're more likely to be able to do some of these skills that we mentioned. All right. So I want you to think about the challenging behavior that you have in your classrooms. And don't worry, even if we have the best teachers, we see that these challenging behaviors happen. They're absolutely normal. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second so I can share the poll. So as we look at this poll, I want us to think about what is the behavior that you notice that happens that's most common in your classroom? What is this challenging behavior that it's just, you're like, oh my God, this happens so often and it's so frustrating for me? And I want you to go ahead and answer which is the most common so we could talk about some specific examples. I'll give you guys a moment to answer the poll. I see some of you are answering in the chat too. That's fine too. Yes, I will read it in Spanish. No problem. Well, I'll read it in English so the interpreter could say it in Spanish. Okay. What is the most common challenging behavior in your classroom? And the options are hitting, biting, crying, throwing objects, excessive shyness, refusal to follow directions, refusal to engage in the activities, and others. Oh, screaming. That's a common one that's not on here. Throwing objects when playing, biting, crying. So we see in the poll that the most common one is refusal to follow directions. And I'll talk a little bit about those. So when we think about a child refusing to follow directions, we have to understand the why. Sometimes, and I see this happen with a lot of parents, they say, my kid doesn't follow directions. And then when I go in and observe the interactions in the environment in the house, I notice that the TV is on, the little brother's playing over here, the tia is coming in and talking about her job. Grandma is over here with a sewing machine making a lot of noise. When there are distractions in the environment, children have a hard time following directions. So one of the ways that we can tackle that, oh, Jackie, you were mentioning there are no rules in the home environment. That is absolutely true, right? We need to help parents be able to implement some of these boundaries. So one of the things I always suggest is that when you have children that are refusing to follow directions, it's frustrating. We're going to stop. We're going to take a deep breath. We're going to try to understand our own feelings and say, okay, I'm ready to proceed. As you are thinking, you're thinking, what are all the possible reasons? Maybe there's too many distractions in the environment. So one of the things that really helps is going up, being in close proximity to that kid, getting close to them, making eye contact and saying, Danny, it's time to put the magnets in the basket. We are getting the magnet and we're putting it in the basket. Look, teacher Johayra is going to show you. Get the magnet and put it in the basket. Show me how you could do it. And then when even if he just grabs a magnet and kind of like throws it, you're like, you put it in the basket. Give me 5. You're doing a great job of putting the magnet in the basket. Notice how many times I have repeated the same words for them to understand what they need to do. I did it in a way where I'm close to the child. I made eye contact with them. And I could even be a little more creative and say, we're playing a game. We are going to be the cleaner uppers. We are going to be the cleaner uppers. Put on the uniform of the cleaner upper. All right, now we're going to get the block and put it in the basket. Now we engage them in putting on their uniform. It's silly. It's fun. I told them what to do, and I am making eye contact, giving them simple directions, modeling how to do it, and recognizing when they're doing it right. So I've made it a play-based experience, and I've incorporated all these great strategies in there. Anna was sharing using a soft voice. And that's why it's so important that you stop and regulate your own emotions. Because if you try to do what I just did, but you're frustrated and upset, the children can tell. So if I go up to that kid and I'll be like, Danny, you need to put it in the basket, okay? Here's a block. You put it in the basket, okay? Notice my tone. I'm not connecting with that child in a positive way. At that point, the kid might throw the block at my face. Now I'm going to get more upset. And now the challenging behavior gets a level up. That's why you got to stop yourself first and say, hold on. Let me take a deep breath. So you can talk in that soft, exciting, and playful way. I saw some teachers were sharing singing. Singing is great. We're going to put the block in the basket, in the basket. Let's go. Let's put the block in the basket, in the basket. You could do your own tone. You could do it to, your favorite reggaeton song of Bad Bunny. You could do it to your favorite rhythm of, a Tupac song, whatever. But you could do it in music, get you in a better mood, get them in a better mood, do it in a way that is play-based and that really helps them. Directions are hard for kids. We got to give them one step at a time, particularly if you're working with toddlers. They're not able to process yet. So we got to do one at a time. And then over time, they will be able to be better able to do it. And so we do it in this play-based way to try to prevent it, and in a play-based way to be able to also acknowledge it when it happens. So I understand those challenging behaviors are frustrated. The play and the silly way to do it is the best way to do it. So I want you now to take a moment. You can use your little engagement tool to take notes, or remember, if you weren't able to print it, you could do one on the side. I want you to think about the child in your classroom. I want you to think about the one that's exhibiting the most challenging behavior. And I want you to make a quick little plan. What play-based learning are you going to use to connect with this child and engage them this week? What's something out of all the ideas that we talked about that you're going to try to do with this little one who's having a hard time? So I'll give you guys a moment and you can write it down, make your little plan. You could also share with me in the chat when you're ready. And we'll take about 2 minutes as we are thinking about that. Let's think about little Logan. Think specifically about that little boy who's displaying the challenging behavior and what you're going to try. All right, I see some of you are going to try some of the breathing from the diaphragm, remember? You're going to try to establish trust. I love that you mentioned that, Madeline, because there's actually a research intervention called banking time. It came out of the University of Virginia, Dr. Amanda Wilford. She's the one who's done a lot of this work. And banking time is that kid that has the most challenging behavior. Oh, Maritza, I saw you heard about it. Wonderful. That kid that's displaying the most challenging behavior, you take a couple of minutes, usually in the morning before you start the day, to have a one-on-one interaction with that kid. It can be 5 minutes. It can be 2 minutes. You're making eye contact with that kiddo and you're connecting with them. You're playing what they want in that moment. You're giving them an opportunity to hug you if that's what they want, or to be able to build a block together. You're doing something together that's connecting with them. That is a great way to use play-based learning to connect with the child. So you guys are going to try that eye contact. You're going to try incorporating some of these games with children. I love that, Matilda, asking the child how you feel today. And for that strategy, having those pictures of the emotions really helps. So especially for the nonverbal kids, if you're working with really young ones, and even not, because even preschool kids have a hard time labeling their emotions. Hugs. Yeah, Edna, you have a lot of children in the classroom. Hugs. That feeling. One of those, I've seen some people talk about this in education and also in parenting, and there has been some research on it as well, that when a child hugs you, don't be the first one to let go. Let them let go first. And it has shown how children get more soothed emotionally when they do it in that way. So hugging can be a great way. Of course, we want to respect children's body boundaries. Some children don't like hugs, and that's okay. But for the ones that do, let them hug you and let them be the ones that let go first, so they can really, really feel that connection with you. Building empathy through role playing. Absolutely. You can use puppets, dolls. And you know what? When you guys use those strategies outside of the moment, it gives children time to be able to do it when they are not frustrated and upset. So they can start building those habits of like, oh, yeah, that's how we solve that problem. Focusing on kindness and cooperation. Yes. Morning affirmation. Oh my God, I love all these great plans. So make sure you write those down, because I want you guys to leave out of here on Monday and do some of these things in your classroom. So I know many of us are quickly aging, which is wonderful, right? Because we want to make sure we stay alive and we stay excited to be able to live. And I know a lot of us are always looking for the trick to stay young. We have the Fountain of Youth in San Augustine right here in Florida. People go and start putting all that special water in their face to stay young. And you know what? Unfortunately, there's no research that really documents that people that put that water in their face stay young. But what we do know is that children, that adults that are nurturing their inner child, that play, that take time to be silly, that dance, that do all of these great things, that those people end up staying young forever in their hearts. So you know what? You don't need to buy expensive moisturizers. You don't need to go to the Fountain of Youth and put all that stuff in your face. What you need to do is make sure that you are nourishing your inner child. And you, as educators, have an opportunity to do that more than all of us, because you are there every single day with kids and you can engage in these play-based experiences. You can make sure that they're critically thinking, that they're having fun, and that they're enjoying. And you're also making sure that you stay young. How many times have we been with kids and they say the funniest things and we can't stop laughing? I remember one day I was in the classroom with a toddler, and we had just finished doing the potty routine, which is very hard for kids. And this is a kid who's usually had a hard time in the potty routine. And he comes out of the bathroom and he's like, my butt has a hole. It's broken. We need a new one. And I just started cracking up. And I was like, oh my God, yes, you're right. Butts have holes because that's how poop gets through the hole. And we ended up acknowledging it in this play-based way after he was a little concerned and frustrated about it. And that laughing and that silliness and that play helped me connect with him. And it also helped me stay young in my heart and take a moment to just laugh. So we've been talking a lot about these play-based experiences, right? And we've been talking about how a lot it's very good for kids and how it's very good for us. And we want to nurture our inner child. And I want us now to kind of take our hats off for educators and just be you. Be the person that you are. And I want us to engage in an adult play-based experience. You to participate in this experience, all you have to do is just go with the flow. Answer some of my questions as you go through this experience. We are going to enjoy the experience and we're going to have some fun. So I want to let you know that we have these investors, okay? They approached me before this session and they said that they wanted to give us a lot of money. They wanted to invest in either this amazing kitchen or an airplane. But before they put their money where their mouth is and give us all this money to build these things, they want us to show them a detailed representation of what that looks like. So before we get into that, I am going to launch a poll. And we're going to do things in two separate groups. You are either going to be the group that chooses to build this most amazing kitchen. And remember, we got to persuade them that our kitchen is the best kitchen. There's other groups that are doing this. Or the most amazing airplane. So I am going to go ahead and launch a poll for us. And you're going to choose what group you want to be in. Do you want to be part of the group that builds the kitchen? Or do you want to be part of the group that builds the airplane? So I'm launching that. So go ahead and choose. What do you prefer, the kitchen or the airplane? For those of us who are immigrants, which I know many of us are, if you choose an airplane, you could think about the most amazing airplane that you could bring your family from Cuba, from Venezuela, from Nicaragua, from any of these places that you could bring them on. If you're doing a kitchen, think about having all that family there and you're going to be impressing them with the most amazing meals. So go ahead and pick what group. There's no right or wrong answer. You can pick whichever one you want. All right, I see kitchens, a lot of kitchens, airplanes. You guys are still choosing. Okay. I see most of you have chosen. So we have about 70% of you who chose the kitchen and about 30% of you who chose the airplane. And that is wonderful. Now we have to make a decision of what are the important elements that are going to be part of our kitchen or airplane. I'm going to show you some for some inspiration. And I want to let you guys know that we're not limited to real life. We can design things that are in our imagination. So here for the airplane, we have like this amazing like buffet style table. Here we have a butler service that comes and brings you their food. Marlene, I saw being able to unite your whole family. Yes, think about what you would want that airplane or that kitchen to look like as you were doing that. All our families together. You could put a club to go dancing that has the best salsa music or reggaeton music or a merengue music or country style music on that airplane. You can do, you can have a massage be part of that airplane. You can let your imagination run wild. When we think about the kitchen, you can have very, very big kitchens. You can have some that have an island. You can have some that include a dining table or that don't. You can have a robot that makes the food. And maybe they have recipes from our home countries like Cuba and Venezuela and Nicaragua and Honduras and Peru, and they're an expert in building that. We can have refrigerators that it has ingredients in it and it comes up with the best recipes idea that were made by the most famous chefs around the world. Let your imagination run wild about what elements our airplane or our kitchen is going to have. So for those of you who are a little bit more tech savvy, I'm going to share with you what we call a Jamboard. In this Jamboard, you are able, I'm showing what it looks like now. You guys are able to type. So let's suppose I want a robot in my kitchen. You have sticky notes there. You could put robot and you can save it. The way that you would do it is that you would click on it, put what you want, and then press save. So I'm going to share the link in the Jamboard. And I want you guys to just brainstorm with me, let your imagination run wild on what you would have in the kitchen. The kitchen is in the green, and the blue has the airplane ideas. So go ahead. I see some of you are already on it. Wonderful. Have a great time. Go ahead and type. For those of you who don't feel comfortable with technology, don't you worry about it. I am going to go ahead and add some of the ideas that you put here. See a lot of great ideas here. So remember, let it run wild. You could have celebrities part of your airplane, of your kitchen, whatever you guys want. Ooh, hanging plants. That is beautiful. Fresh foods. Yes, we can have a garden in our kitchen. That's great. And I see someone shared here an intelligent kitchen. Yes. So it knows what we want and just gets it done. Wow, we want music on our plane. All right. I see you guys are sharing so much. I love this. All right, let's talk about some of the things some elements you guys came up with. So we see here for the airplane, we have that it has a full-blown movie theater. That sounds like a great element. It even has a bed that you can rest. It helps us visit exotic places. So like there's a specific tour route that we're going to go on. It has different areas for playtime. So it has stuff for the kids to be able to engage in certain areas. And also for us as adults, maybe it has a reading area that we want to read. Or maybe there's an area that we do manicures and pedicures. There's an area with the spa where we do massage. We see that there's music going on. That it has really large windows so we can see the sky. I see people here sharing in the chat still. It has a Coca-Cola machine. Yes, maybe it gives the nice glass Coca-Colas that taste so good. It even has a gym, has a bar. Martha Stewart is I think she might be at our kitchen, but she can come to our plane too. We can even put a kitchen inside the plane. We can do karaoke time. There's like a karaoke bar. And for the kitchen now, where there's a wine dispenser, can't miss the wine. It has buffet. It has very nice pots and pans. There's also a karaoke bar in our kitchen. It has beautiful windows. It has a recipe a grocery list builder that sends directly to Instacart. So we don't even have to worry about going to the grocery store. It brings it in. Amazing. It has all the different tools. It's big, so it can have our entire families in it. It has these beautiful hanging plants. We have all these ingredients of different cultures. I saw one of you were saying you wanted to bring your family from Peru into that kitchen. So we might have some amazing ceviche ingredients there. Amazing, amazing. We see here that there's a lot of technological things to be able to do it. Oh, it smells nice. Yes, we have aromatherapy. We could have that in the plane and also in the kitchen. Yes. Different menus, a walk-in fridge. It's gonna have, our plane is gonna have 2 floors.
Someone requested Mark Anthony on the airplane.
Yes, it could be an entertainment area. Mark Anthony singing to us with his beautiful voice. That's wonderful. Okay. All right. So we have all of our ideas. So I want you to keep these things in mind. And these investors, they don't want us to go out into the world and do the representation. They want to put us in a special room because the thing is that they're also testing us. Are we going to, how is it that we're going to think creatively and that we're going to solve problems? They don't want to invest their money in people that, are going to get frustrated. So they go ahead and they put us in a room. And they tell us that before they even hear a presentation of our kitchen, we have to build that detailed representation. We have to build a maquette of it, right? Think about it as like, for those of you who have been in Santa's Enchanted Forest, where you see that little village and it's like a small representation of what it would look like. It's kind of like that. That's what like a maquette is. And if you look to your right, the picture, you could see a representation of it. Architects do it all the time as they're presenting their plans of being able to do something. They want us to build that. But they said that our maquette for our kitchen or our airplane, it's going to have to follow 3 criteria. We have to include the measurements of it. We also have to use a plastic water bottle, like the one that I was telling you about. We have to include it somehow in our maquette. And it has to include something purple. You see, the woman who is the leader of this investment group, that's her favorite color. So she says it has to include something purple. They put us in this room. And this is the materials that you have in this room. No, you can't take your purse and take extra stuff. You gotta make it work with what you see. The only additional thing that they might put in there is glue. They allow you to bring glue, but you gotta buy that ahead of time and let them scan it to make sure it's not a glue that's cheating. So now with all the elements that we talked about and our criteria, I want you guys to take a moment and write notes, brainstorm. What would it look like? You can paint. What are you going to use the straws for? What are you going to use that plastic bottle for? And I want you guys to do your plan. So I'm going to go ahead as you guys are thinking about doing this. And we are going to take 5 minutes to do that independently. And then we are going to share out. So I'm putting on my timer 5 minutes. You're thinking about all your ideas of your kitchen and your airplane. And you're in this room and you got to meet the criteria that they have and build that maquette that represents all those cool things that you said. So I'll give you guys 5 minutes to do that. At 11:45, we'll come back and share our ideas. Go ahead and write those down. I realize I'm muted. I see some questions. Take 5 minutes to like just brainstorm things. And then when you've brainstormed enough, if you want, you can go ahead and write it on the chat. Remember, we really want to impress these investors. So we want to take some planning time and think about it. And if you guys were all together in the room, you'd be doing it in small groups. If you want to engage some of your family members to talk through these ideas, go for it. We got 2 more minutes to think this through. I see some amazing ideas in the chat already. 2 more minutes. All right. I saw so many creative ideas using the Play-Doh to make the different foods in the kitchen. You talked about this idea of mixing paints, that red and blue. We got to make sure to include purple in there. You talked about, one of you talked about how you would open up the bottle. I think it was Blanca who talked about it. You would open up the bottle and you would create seats for your movie theater in your airplane. You talked about how you can be using the Play-Doh to represent different kinds of food. So you can make it stringy to represent the spaghetti that you're serving in your kitchen. Amazing, amazing, amazing ideas here. Many of you talked about including flowers as part of your kitchen or your airplane, and you could be using those tissue papers and you can paint them and you can put them on top. So of let's talk about the measurement part, because I didn't see anybody talking about measurements. What are the measurements of your kitchen or your airplane, and how did you figure that out? What did you use? Give you guys a minute. I'm getting through all the comments. I love how you guys are so engaged. This is wonderful. This means that this is going to transfer over to your students. Thank you so much. You were using that ruler to get the measurements? Yes. And you were documenting those measurements. Wonderful. You could also use some paper clips to measure, and we can extend this experience and include more materials to get more creative over time. So let's think about that experience that we went through as an adult. Remember I said you don't learn from experience, you learn from reflecting on it. So let's reflect on the experience. How did it go? How did you guys feel about that experience? Did you like it? What was challenging about it? And I'll give you guys a moment to answer in the chat. What did you think about that experience? You guys enjoyed it? What are some things that you had to think about that was challenging? You had fun. You had an opportunity to be creative. It was interesting. What was hard about it? What did you have to think? What problems did you have that you were like, "Oof, I have this. I'm trying to get to this goal." Yeah, it was satisfying to think about how you were going to build all those different things. You had all these great elements, but you didn't know how to build it. You got excited and creative. Yes. And so we had a good time doing it. I see a very positive response here. Now I want you guys to think about what domains of development were being supported there. How was this supporting your social emotional skills as an adult? I see some of you are already ahead of the game. So with the measurements, you are already doing some of that mathematical thinking. For social emotional, you had to be like, okay, I'm frustrated. I don't know how to use this plastic water bottle, but I gotta put it in there. If you guys were doing it together in a room, I told you you'd be brainstorming with your colleagues. Hopefully, maybe you grabbed your son or your daughter or your husband or your wife, got them to talk about it. You were being able to incorporate art into it. Yeah, because you were mixing those paints. And when you were mixing those paints, you were doing cause and effect. That's scientific thinking. Yeah, you were thinking about how am I going to get this plane to fly with all this stuff in it? This plane is massive. Yeah. So notice that as adults, as we were engaging in this experience, it was a play-based experience. I can sit here and tell you that using measurement can be fun in the classroom, or you can experience that for yourself. You notice that as you were building these ideas of this plane or this kitchen, you were using measurement. All I did was set up a structure to encourage you to do that. And I hope I didn't let you down. There are no real investors that are coming, but we got to engage in this play-based way as we were doing this and thinking about what we would do in this specific situation. We were learning cause and effect. If we would be doing it with the real materials in our lives, which you are doing things like this with kids, we are doing their fine motor skills. We're doing all of these things. And I want to let you know that how I decided to decide what the experience was of building a kitchen or building an airplane is because I worked with teachers similar to you all, that they tend to engage in cooking in their real life and they have their own kitchens. So I thought, oh, maybe that's something that might interest them. I also thought, oh, a lot of the teachers that are working with us, they fly a lot. They go to other countries like Cuba, Venezuela, Peru, Nicaragua, Spain, any of these places where they have to be on a plane. They have families that live in other places. And so they might be interested in that. So I came up with this experience thinking about what might you all be interested in? The same way that you guys come up with an experience thinking about what is it that you are going to observe in your kids that could tell you that they might bite? Within the experience, there was flexibility. You guys were able to choose what route you wanted to go. Kitchen was the most popular one. But some of you were interested in the plane, and that was cool too. So you got to use your own interest in being able to engage in that experience. You also were able to use your imagination and being able to engage in that experience. So we thought about what's something that interests you, and then we created a plan about something that had creativity and flexibility for you to be able to do these things yourselves. And here I want to talk to you about the importance of repetition. I promise you that if tomorrow we had a session together, or next week we had a session together, and I'd ask you to do the same experience and build on this kitchen or airplane that you already did, you would have more creative ideas. You would have had time to think through, oh my God, wait, hold on. I put the door to get in the airplane right next to the nightclub. How about if my sister's coming in with a baby at night into the plane and it wakes her up? I'm going to have to move the structure of my club where we dance. So even for adults, when we repeat an experience, you are going to learn more. You're going to have more opportunities to be more creative. You're going to have time to edit your plan and accommodate based on more complex thinking. That's the same thing for kids. Repeat these experiences with children. Repeat it because it's beneficial for them. It's so much fun to think about it. It helps them better understand. The same way that you said, oh, I have to move that nightclub because it's right next to where the kids are sleeping. I have the baby room there. I got to move it. It's causing all these issues. Kids also go through those learnings, and it's going to better help them understand the material. It gives them more time to explore these different ideas. Maybe they didn't get measurement the first time. Maybe as you were building things, you forgot about the measurement. So tomorrow, you get to explore measurement more. The kids are like that too. They get to explore these same topics various times. and it builds on their learning. The same way that you are going to build next week, if we do this experience together on your kitchen, kids also get to build on their knowledge the next day, and they get to connect it to the other knowledge, right? They can think, oh yeah, you know what? I built the flowers out of the tissue paper this time, and my flowers came apart when I sprinkled water on it. So you know what? I'm going to try to do it out of Play-Doh. So it helps them connect that knowledge. So when we repeat our experiences for children over days and over weeks, we integrate more learning in it. Oh, I love that Edna shared their little future engineers as they're building things. And that is exactly what they are. And you guys were engineers this morning, right? As you were building your own kitchen, your own airplane. Kids might be interested in building their own aquarium. They might be interested in building the perfect room in their house. They might be interested in building the best playground. And look how much learning we can incorporate in there. So I want to encourage you to repeat the experiences. You don't have to go crazy to think of something new every single day for kids. Read that same book again, and this time maybe ask different questions. Mix different paints. Instead of letting all the paints go out, go one paint at a time. Slow down your experiences throughout the week and repeat them. Today, you're going to have 6 kids that realize that when you mix red and blue, you get purple. And you know what? That's awesome. For the kids that already figured it out, when we do it in play-based learning, we say use that purple to paint your favorite room. But for the other kids that haven't figured it out, they have more time as that experience is being repeated for them. And then you can, in these play-based learning, individualize for the kids that have learned and the kids that have not learned it yet. You can build a tower 100 times in the classroom. You could use more or less blocks. You can use different blocks, maybe the foam ones or the magnetic ones. You can use the solid one. So don't be scared. You don't have to come up with a new material every time. You don't have to come up with a whole new experience. Repeat the experiences. For those of you who have had your own children or you've worked with children for a long time, how many times do they ask you to see the same movie? My goodness, when my godson was little, I must have seen Finding Nemo 100 times. My godson loved that movie. They like to repeat experiences. It lets them know that they can predict what's happening next. Capitalize on that and bring in more learning and more integration into the work that you're doing with kids. I want to take us back for a second. I know we only have 30 more minutes together, I believe. And Pamela, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we still have 30 minutes together. I want to bring us back.
25.
35. Yes, love it.
25.
Oh, 25. Okay. So we're going to bring us back to our Florida learning and developmental standards. Everything that I have shared with you today are part of those standards. Here is the website. I encourage you, I'll put it inside the chat. I encourage you to use this website. This website, you can learn about the different standards. You click your standards. You can adapt it to what you're interested in. So let's suppose I want to look at scientific inquiry, but I'm only teaching 2 to 3-year-olds. So I come here, it tells me a little bit about what it is. It tells me the different components and tells me what does it look like for a 2 or 3-year-old to be using their senses. Oh, they should be using the sense organs. They should begin to start to observe their environment. They should be able to identify some of the objects and the features about their world. This is a great resource that's so underused in our community. It even has an area that is for families. And look, it can tell them, okay, let's suppose that this family has a 2-year-old, takes them to the standards and tells them what are their kids supposed to be doing in language that is friendly for parents. So please, please, please use this resource, use these developmental standards. Everything that we have gone through in this session together comes from these standards. Of course, we had more of a focus on mathematical thinking and scientific inquiry, and we'll continue to talk about those a little more specifically, but we've already presented so much on it. So when we think about mathematical thinking, we're thinking about things that have number knowledge, patterns, size and shape awareness, relationships between objects in space. And our standards are broken down in number senses, number and operations, patterns, geometry, spatial relations, and measurement and data. You can explore that here. If you go to the standards and you go to mathematical thinking, you can see all the different components. I have to put the age of the kids. Let's suppose that I want to see the whole trajectory. Put the age of the kids and look, all the components come out. And I could see what it looks like across time. What is it that number sense looks like in infancy? Oh, that they're attending to play, that they're observing finger play that involves numbers and quantities. So then with this website, you know what is it that looks like. So when we talk about spatial relations, we talked about it a little bit when we were talking about the spaghetti activity, when we said up, down, and move it all around. So we're going to do a little poll now just to make sure that we remember what these spatial relations are. What are we talking about when we're saying that? And it's asking us, give me 1 second as I bring up the poll. Here we go. Launch it. And I will read it out loud for those of you who are having trouble seeing it. So which of the following is an example of a teacher supporting children's spatial relations? And here are options. The teacher asks the child, what color is the car? The teacher asks the child, did you put the car up the ramp? The teacher asks the child, how are you? Or the teacher tells the child to tippy-toe to the block area. And I'll give you a moment to think about that. All right, so we're seeing a lot of options of 2, and you guys are right. So when you think about spatial relations, we're thinking about things in our space. So things that go under, things that go on top, things that go up, things that go down. And those positional words are supporting children's understanding of their space. So that is why this is what's most related to spatial relations. I saw some of you chose the other answers. I want to let you know that the other answers are not bad. Asking a child, how are you, is so important for their social emotional development. And that's a good thing to do, but it's just not necessarily supporting their spatial relations. So we want to make sure that we read our questions carefully and that we think about, okay, what is an example of this? And make sure that we're attaching those things. Any questions about that example? Okay. All right. So why do you even need to focus on mathematical thinking? Come on, we're working with little kids. Why do we have to talk about math so early on? Can't we just hug and kiss them? That's the best part of our job. And it is a really good part of our job. But one of the things that we've noticed about mathematical thinking is that it's one of the best predictors for school success. I'm sure you guys have heard about you got to read to the kid 30 minutes a day. That supports early language and literacy, which we know is important. And there was a big push in the past couple of decades for reading. But we've done some additional research. And I want to just give you some of these findings so you can notice how impactful the work that you're doing is. So we've studied children that they've had math input. So their educators and their parents have been exposing them to these mathematical skills that we've been talking about. They've been using the examples that we discuss. And we see that we've looked at that for children who are 14 months to 30 months. So we're talking about 1.5 here, right? 14 months to 30 months. And we've seen how that's really, we've followed them across time. We see that those kiddos that are getting this information about math in an intentional way, they're having more pre-K math abilities. When they're tested at pre-K, if they got good input when they were 14 to 30 months, they're having better math skills at pre-K. We've done studies just looking at early childhood and seeing, okay, from 0 to 5, what is the math exposure that they're getting? And how is that being documented and related to later? We see that children in elementary school in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade are performing better in those math skills in those later grades. And honestly, this next study is the one that always is shocking, but important that you guys know. We looked at early math skills from 0 to 5 years of age, and we see how that related to children's math skills in high school and how, if they were able to sign up for college. We see that their early math skills is one of the best predictors if children go to college. So that means that the stuff that you're doing with children in your classroom that is supporting their math skills in 0 to 5 can make a lifelong difference in the success that this child will have if they're able to get into college. The work that you guys are doing today will change the life of these children forever. So intentionally supporting these math skills will make a difference of all the amazing things they're able to accomplish in their lives. And when we think about math skills, a lot of people say, oh no, but they're too young. They're not ready. I want to share with you this research that has been done. Newborns enter the world ready to learn, and children are capable of understanding mathematics as early as infancy. I'm going to share with you this video. It's only about a minute and a half, and it shows us how at this early stage, they're able to understand quantity already. So I'll put the volume up so you guys can hear it, and we're going to watch this video.
We often assume that because babies can't tell us what they know about the world, that they see the world really differently than we do. Research like ours suggests that babies actually have a pretty sophisticated understanding of the world.
1, 2, 3, 4. 4 dogs.
We asked whether even babies who are years away from saying their first number word might have some early sensitivity to number. So we showed babies as we hid different numbers of toys in a box for them to find. And sometimes we counted the toys aloud before we hid them.
1, 2, 3, 4.
And other times we just pointed at the toys without counting.
This. These cars.
And what we found is that babies were better able to remember the number of toys we had hidden when we had counted them.
Good job.
These results were actually really surprising because of all the prior research for the past decades have shown how difficult it is for young children to master the meanings of count words.
And so what that tells us is that counting aloud encourages babies to think about the world in terms of quantities. Although they are years away from understanding the exact meanings of number words, babies are already in the business of recognizing that counting is about number.
Okay, so we saw in that research. Oh, hold on, let me make sure to close that YouTube. Second. Sorry. Okay. I have so many windows open that I'm trying to find it. All right, here we go. We got it. Okay, so you could see in some of that research that kids are already very capable in understanding numbers. And did you see those kiddos? They weren't even able to talk. And they were still, we were getting signals from them that were nonverbal, that they were able to do these things. So children are very, very capable to do math. and we want to encourage them to capitalize on what they're already interested in to do that. We're providing, like Yamilet said, we're providing an introduction to it. And as they become more and more interested, they will be able to do more. And as we do this, we are influencing if they go to college or not. So I gave you guys as a resource, what I did is that I went into the standards website, and I think sometimes it's helpful to see these standards, how they move across time. I went into specifically for mathematical thinking, I went into measurement and data, and I plotted here what it looks like birth to 8 to 18 months, 18 months to 24 months, and so on. So you can kind of see what these look like against time. So when we are thinking about what we're going to support for children, a lot of the times I work with teachers who tell me, oh, the thing is, oh, give me 1 second. Let me make sure I'm sharing the right screen with you guys. Here we go. So a lot of the times educators share with me, oh, I have a kid with special needs in my classroom. He is not really able to talk yet, and he doesn't understand things. Well, you know what? If that's happening in your classroom, then you have a challenge, right? Think about it as like you have this project that you have to be able to do well in, which is helping that child learn from the experiences in your classroom in a way that's helpful for them. Maybe they are not in the space of the typical 3-year-old. But as you look at these standards, you know what? I'm pretty confident that that child explores objects in various ways. So they are doing things from birth to 8. So we could see, okay, what are the next skills that they're going to need? They're going to need to explore and show awareness of size and weight. Okay, so that's what I work on with that kid. So maybe he's not able to, if you look at the 3-year-olds, maybe he's not able to use size words and label those objects. But we can use these continuums to help us know how can we individualize so that kid is getting something from this experience. And these continuums of skills are very helpful to us as we're thinking about how to plan in our classroom. So we're going to go back for a second to our educator that was exploring water and powder. Okay. And remember, we said that she gave a great experience as she was doing a sensory experience. But now what we're going to do is that we are going to think about that measurement and data continuum that I just shared with you. And we're going to look at this video with that idea, right? And remember, we repeat experiences. So this teacher did this yesterday. And now she's thinking about how do I add different things here so it could be more about measurement. And I'm going to play the video again and think about what can we add on here to satisfy one of those skills.
Oh, it's water, and water is what color? It's clear. Do it have a smell? You drink it. Smell? Want to smell it? Water doesn't have a smell. No, but this is one of the things we're gonna be using, it's water, see? All right, now I'm gonna show you what's next. Yeah, that's okay, it's just water. One at a time. You see? What is that? Touch it. Poquito, Jazz. That's okay. Feel it. Feel it. Wanna feel it? Touch it, Sarah. Touch it. See? Now look at your hand. Is it white? What color is it? Jasmine, Victoria? White. It's not liquid like water, it's powder. You see, it sticks on your hand. And water didn't stick to your hand, right? It's harder to take off, huh? What you feel, Victoria? Look, what you feel? How does it feel?
Okay. I see as you guys were looking at it, you guys already gave so many ideas. So like including water cups, deciding if the cups are full or empty when you're doing the water or doing it with the powder as well. You could bring in sponges and talk about texture and talk about squeezing the sponges so all the water comes out in another container. So as we think about these experiences, and notice how she slowed down her experience. I recommended a simple experience like this at first. You could do this on a Monday as you're exploring the different materials. Slow down your experiences. But then you can add a little bit more to it. And you could say, you know what? We're going to do a play-based experience and we're going to do a birthday cake because kids love birthdays. So they're super interested in cupcakes. I've observed that. And we're going to pretend we're building a birthday cake. And as I looked at my standards, I see use appropriate size words or gestures, big or small, to describe objects accurately. And I noticed that's where my kids are. They haven't quite, you know, some of them are showing that skill, but most of them are not. And they're kind of supposed to based on their age. Just like you guys mentioned, we can now include these little cups, and they're stacking cups. Some are big, some are small. And now we can include that language in our conversation. And we could say, are we going to build a big cupcake or a small cupcake? And which cup are we going to use? And which one is smaller and which one is bigger? Which one holds more powder? Which one holds less powder? So notice how we're having these conversations in this fun way of building a birthday cake using our standards, right? Because we're always doing all the experiences using our standards, and we can focus on some of these mathematical skills. And Anna's bringing to light that she's also supporting some language skills as she's using words like sticky. Absolutely. We can incorporate some of that in. How can we make the powder be more solid, right? How can we get it to, I'm sorry, more liquid? We can add water to it and see what happens. We might have looked at our standards and seen where kids are and said, you know what? I'm going to actually help them now compare sets of objects by attribute. And I'm going to talk about weight. So I'm going to bring in some spoons, and they're going to be able to measure how much does that powder weigh, how many spoonfuls, and which one weighs and which one weighs more, which one weighs less. So those are different ways that you could do that. And when we think about science, it's also something similar. When we talk about science inquiry, we're talking about them understanding and exploring their environment through observations, through experimentation, through inquiry, through asking questions of the world. When we look at the components on our website, we have scientific inquiry through exploration and discovery, the use of their senses, sensory play, big opportunity for that. Life senses, physical science, earth and space, environment. We could bring in engineering and technology. And you might be thinking, okay, why do we need to focus on science skills? I'm convinced about math, but how about science? Well, science capitalizes on children's natural curiosity and eagerness to be able to explore and learn. That's why when people tell you, oh, children don't like science, I'm like, then science isn't presented to them in a way that makes sense. Because all children love to explore the world. It provides deeper understanding of how the natural world works. It lays a foundation for critical thinking. It helps them explore various domains of development. Just like we talked about, it's so easy to bring in language and math and science within these play-based science experiences. And there has been some really good research, a lot of it here done in Miami by Dr. Daryl Greenfield from the University of Miami, talking about how it's closing the achievement gap. We see that when children have more play-based science experiences, these children that work with us, that live in poverty, that are immigrants, they're being able to have more skills as they grow up. They're more likely to be able to get into college. They're more likely to be able to learn more math, more science, and that's helping them in their adult goals. So, Pamela, do I have time for one last little video?
Yes, you do.
All right, awesome. So I am going to share.
This is called a.
I'm going to share this video with you all of an educator who's being super intentional of incorporating science and STEM play experiences into her classroom. And I hope as we watch this video, we can see all the amazing things this educator is doing, and you will go and be motivated to do the same. So we'll watch this video.
This is called a funnel. A funnel. What's happening?
Because we emphasize STEM in preschool, my students are able to build on their confidence levels when mastering science, technology, engineering, and math. They're able to explore and observe different subjects, different materials, different tools, and be able to utilize those things sooner in life. I have a question.
What?
Is sand solid or liquid?
Liquid.
A liquid. Mm.
At Educare, we knew STEM was a yes for us because we wanted the kids to have some of that language and those experiences of STEM practices. A few years ago, we received a grant opportunity to bring STEM to Educare New Orleans for the 4-year-olds, and we jumped on it. It began with teachers and supervisors going through an extensive training. We found that the kids loved it. It wasn't over their heads. It was very age appropriate. Several other classes now implement STEM in the classroom. So STEM happens in the classroom through play, actually in the centers.
At such a young age, they're at a stage where they want to see, they want to feel, they want to touch, they want to know what it is, whatever they're playing with, basically finding a way to incorporate those science, technology, engineering, and math questions with blocks, sand and water, all of the different centers that we have in the classroom. Adrian, you're gonna build your castle too? Adrian loves to build, and he's really thoughtful about where he's gonna put what. He was building a structure and it kept falling over. And he was like, you know what? I'm gonna move this structure over to the wall. Why do you need the wall? So that it won't fall down. Okay. The bottom is called the foundation. So did you make sure your foundation was sturdy? We gave them that vocabulary of foundation and stability and gravity. What's making that big, heavy, tall block stay on top of that little small block? So when you put the smaller pieces, Adrian, come on, come get it, Adrian. What happened? It started to fall. Why do you think it started to fall? Because of this one. So this one made it what? Lighter or heavier? Heavier. So you think you can't put heavy pieces on the edge or it's gonna fall? All right, there you go. Also, we had Zoomy set up, and Zoomy's really fun.
So this is the part of the video I showed you that like you have all the materials to be able to incorporate math and science into your classroom. If you are interested in additional materials, some more technology stuff, this is an example of one. There's a lot of others, but this is just an example. But you do not need this to be able to engage in math and science.
Because he zooms in and gets really close and lets us look at things really closely. Okay? So each of you will get a chance to use Zoomy.
We were introducing a digital microscope. We had different types of fruits, vegetables. Prior to my STEM training, I probably would have demonstrated for the kids how to use it. I would have used it for them and just let them watch.
So you can see all the little fibers and threads in these.
It can be engaging by allowing the kids to just play, stepping back, observing, encourage them to see how that tool was helpful to them just based on what they were doing as opposed to me doing it for them or me telling them what to do.
Prior to having STEM training, I was like, what is going to be the purpose of this? These children are going to be able to understand this. Here I am, a big grown lady, and I still can't understand certain science concepts. Once we mix the water in with the cornstarch, is it going to be a solid or is it going to be a liquid? It's really interesting to me that they're able to grasp whatever we give them. What about you, Kason? Kason, do you think it's going to be a solid or a liquid? When I was growing up, they didn't give us many opportunities to do hands-on activities when it came to science. I think if I would have had those opportunities that I'm giving my students, that I would have been able to understand it more and be more interested in it. So it's really fun to be able to explore those things with my students now.
All right. So hopefully you saw this amazing educator being able to implement some of these things, and you're motivated to explore STEM a little bit more. I hope that you take some time to really consider what you learned today. I had a bunch of other examples, and I'll share them with you guys, but I know we're recording close on time. And just so you know, we covered a lot of this already, so you're not missing out on a lot. But we will take some time to reflect on some of the key things you learned. And what is it that you want to try out? What specific activities and strategies you want to try out?
So if you do have any questions about Super STEM Saturday, about professional development, continuing your professional development with us, please go ahead and contact us. Our email is pdevelopment@elcmdm.org. Our phone number 305-646-7220, extension 2350. And of course, to sign up for our courses, please visit trainings.elcmdm.org, where we have so many varieties of courses for you. I would like to say a big thank you. Thank you for spending and sharing your Saturday morning with us. I want to take a minute to thank our entire PDI faculty with us today this morning. We have Miss Anna Sajak, Sori Palacio, Angelica Ordoscosia, Carmen Medrano, Ana Avalos, and Sharonda Walker, of course. So thank you all. And of course, we have Bienela Herrera. Thank you all. Thank you to Dr. Bouza for a stellar presentation. Our interpreters, Danielle, Luis, Pedro, Abdi. This was a great presentation also. The Professional Development Institute thanks you for your commitment to learn and also to implement different strategies that you have learned today into your classroom. So we will see you in December for our next Super Saturday Monroe Takeover. So we're eager to learn with you. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Once again, thank you. Gracias. Merci en pile. We'll see you next time. Thank you, everybody.